Hello, and welcome to our reflection for Holy Week as we walk together through the story of Jesus' trial, his crucifixion, and his death together. My name is Anna, and this is Mark, and we are the Vineyard Site Pastors for Cardiff West. So already this week we've been looking at Jesus being betrayed by Judas, then we've looked at Peter denying Jesus 3 times, and today Mark and I are going to look at the trial of Jesus before Pilate. The quizzing of him and the claims of him, his kingdom and his kingship, and then finally his freedom being exchanged for that of the criminal, Barabbas. And so it may be that you might want to grab a Bible and reflect on this some more, but we'll just start and we'll have a little look at it in John 18 verses 28 to 40. So as we look at the scripture, we can see that there were 3 things that were on trial that morning. Firstly, Jesus the King is on trial. And so we read about a confrontation between Pilate and Jesus, between a false king and the true king. Here are these 2 kings having a discussion about the nature of kingship, what it means to be a king and what it doesn't mean. John's main point in this whole text, and actually in the whole book of John, is to identify Jesus as the true messianic king. This is where the whole gospel is going. John is piling up statement after statement, witness after witness about, and sign after sign pointed to Jesus as the messianic king. Jesus is the king.
And secondly, the truth is on trial. We live in a world where truth can become a narrative. We might think that this is new, that fake news is a recent thing, but over 2,000 years ago, the truth was on trial in a Roman palace. What is truth? Pilate said. Well, we take our stance from Jesus on truth. We stand up for the truth, especially when truth is on trial. Truth is never changing, and we see this in Jesus. Jesus came to bear witness to the truth, to point to the truth, and to fearlessly tell the truth to a man who had rejected the possibility that truth might be standing right in front of him that morning in a Roman palace. How many times could that be said of us about truth just being stood right in front of us? Thirdly, Jesus the substitute was on trial. Pilate said to the crowd, "Do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" And the crowd shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." And here in this scene, we see the innocent bear the penalty and the guilty go free. We find a glorious picture of the substitutionary work of Christ for us. Here's a picture of salvation. Jesus Christ bearing our penalty and taking on himself the punishment that is due to us.
So our son, he loves football. It gives him the greatest joy, but also obviously the greatest pain. And as we lead up to a match, he lists the players, he puts them into different formations, and he selects his substitutes. Those that are not as good, those that are not as favoured, those that maybe have made a bunch of mistakes in the previous games. He draws his preferred 11 out onto the football field, but with the substitutes not included. Those are left out. They're rejected, shunned, and left on the side. But with Jesus, we see that he is flawless, the person with no mistakes. And even in this trial, there's no guilt on him. Pilate can find no guilt, but he's punished. But he substitutes himself for us. He says, "Here, let me take your place. I'll put myself on trial. I'll be found guilty. I'll die for you." And he did this for me. He did it for you. And he did it for us. He was trialed, found guilty, and he died for me. He died for you. He died for us. He is the substitute. And what we see with the exchange for Barabbas, we can easily see this for each one of us. The Son of God, free from guilt, taking our punishment.
So who was on trial before Pontius Pilate? Jesus stepped forward and took the place not for one unfortunate man, but for every one of us. Jesus, the substitute. The Christian life begins when you make a clear, personal decision to ask Jesus to be your substitute, to stand in your place, to exchange your sin for his righteousness, your disobedience for his obedience, your brokenness for his wholeness, your addictions for his freedom. And like as we saw with Pilate, truth might be standing right in front of you. And maybe you've never asked Jesus to be your substitute. And it might be that today is the day that you would like to do that. Maybe you already know that Jesus is your substitute. So why don't you take some time this Holy Week to pause and to reflect on Jesus the substitute, who subbed himself in for us every time when we most need him, whenever we ask, whenever we humble ourselves, whenever we look to him.